Good morning. A sovereign citizen informed me politely by saying stupid things that maybe I should go over the various First Amendment tests. Anytime the government passes a law or creates a policy or otherwise restricts your First Amendment right, that restriction, in order for it to be constitutional, has to survive a test. There's 3 levels of that test. There is strict scrutiny, which generally means the government is going to lose. There's intermediate scrutiny, which also generally means the government's going to lose. And then there's a reasonableness test at the very end, which generally means the government is going to win. In non-First Amendment cases, that reasonableness test is called a rational basis review. In First Amendment tests, it's called a non-public forum analysis. As the name would apply, it works on non-public forums. And by non-public forums, I mean it's a forum that is not a traditional public forum or a designated or limited public forum, but let's not get into that because those just use these same tests. And a non-public forum is a place like a jail or a airport or a army base. That's a non-public forum. In order for a restriction on your First Amendment to survive in that forum, it has to be viewpoint neutral. Now, the difference between content neutral and viewpoint neutral is pretty simple. If I say you can't talk about Donald Trump, that's a content restriction. If I say you can't say bad things about Donald Trump, that's a viewpoint restriction. So in order for it to survive the bottom level, the non-public forum analysis, it has to be viewpoint neutral. There has to be a legitimate government need, and the restriction has to be rationally related to that government need. It doesn't have to be the best fit. It doesn't have to be the least restrictive. It just has to be rationally related to it. You know, if a jail doesn't want hippies picketing on their lawns, well, the jail has the right to maintain public order, and it doesn't have to deal with their nonsense. And they have the right to trespass people to preserve the property for the lawful purpose to which it was intended, etc. Very low level, government generally wins. The next step up is intermediate scrutiny. And intermediate scrutiny, in order for a test to survive intermediate scrutiny, it has to be content neutral. Now, where we most often see it is in the public forum analysis and a time, place, or manner restriction. Because if it is a public forum, then it has to be a time, place, or manner restriction, or it has to be, and it has to be content neutral in order for it to survive a restriction in the public forum. There are other things that have intermediate scrutiny, like advertising and things like that, but we're not really dealing with those, so I'm not going to talk much about them. So in order for it to be a time, place, or manner restriction, obviously it has to be content neutral. It has to only restrict either the time or the place or the manner or some combination thereof, but the government has to have a significant or important interest in regulating it. It has to be narrow. The statute has to be narrowly tailored to address specifically that government interest, and it can't go beyond it. And the government has to provide ample alternative methods of communicating the ideas. And so time, place, and manner restrictions, you'll see those on like abortion clinics, where the state government might say, well, you can't picket within 100 feet of the entrance to an abortion clinic. Something along those lines. That might be a place restriction. You could picket about abortion all day long, but not within 100 feet of the entrance to an abortion clinic. The government might do a manner restriction. You can do whatever you want, but you can't use amplified devices in this area, or no flash photography. And then time restrictions are easy. Like a very common time restriction is you can't make over a certain level of noise in a residential neighborhood between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. That's easy, right? So those are examples of time, place, and manner restrictions. Now, is 18 USC 795 a time, place, or manner restriction? Well, no, it's not. It's not content neutral because it deals specifically with the content. Now, anything that is not content neutral or viewpoint neutral is subject to the highest level of scrutiny. It's called the strict scrutiny analysis. And in order to survive a strict scrutiny analysis, there has to be a compelling government interest. And the restriction has to be narrowly tailored to be the least restrictive alternative on people's free speech in order to accomplish that compelling government objective. So when you look at 18 USC 795, if you read it the way I read it, where it's actually designed to protect classified information, i.e. top secret, secret, or confidential information, then that is, the courts have already determined that those kind of issues, those secret, top secret, and confidential national security information is a compelling government interest. The government can stop anybody, anywhere, anytime from talking about that shit. They can do it because it's a compelling government interest. But the government has to do it in the least restrictive manner possible. And so the least restrictive manner possible of protecting that government information, that top secret, secret, or confidential information, is to do things like to require that information be placed into special folders when it's out in the field that have pages that cover and block it and protect it from being seen. That it be delivered by certain methods over certain computers. That when it's stored, it has to be stored in a special cabinet or a special room or a special warehouse. That if it is an installation that is classified secret, top secret, or confidential, it has to be located within a military base, because the walls of the military base and the people guarding those walls will protect that information. It's the least restrictive way of doing it. That way anybody outside the base can film to their heart's content without capturing that classified information. So 18 USC as written and as implemented by Executive Order 10104 is constitutional. Now, if you remove that national security aspect, like Blue Bacon wants to do, and if you turn it into, you can't film a military base that has restricted access, you can't film the walls of it, no national security implications there, or if there are national security implications, then not the least restrictive means of doing it. I mean, they could build another wall outside of that wall. If that wall is so fucking special to the national security, build another wall outside of it that protects that wall from being viewed. That would be the least restrictive alternative. So it fails strict scrutiny on two levels under Blue Bacon's interpretation of 18 USC 795. Number one, the walls of that base are not a compelling government interest. It's not a national security interest. It is not a compelling government interest. And you can tell it's not a compelling government interest because there are billions of pictures of the walls of these bases out and about. And the second way that it fails is, again, that it is not the least restrictive way of protecting the walls of the base. Now, once you get onto the base, the government, 50 USC 797, the government can restrict your right to take photographs. Very easy. Once you get onto that base, once you get into that restricted area, then it switches into a non-public forum analysis. And you're back to, is there a legitimate government interest? Yeah. They don't want people taking pictures of stuff. You're inside the protective layer. Now you might actually see things that are of national security interest. But even not, it's just that It's just that rational basis review, that reasonableness test. Is there a legitimate government interest? And is the restriction reasonable? That's it. Don't film. That they don't have to worry about it at that point. They don't have to worry about what you're going to film if they don't allow filming. And so that you're aware, so that the audience is aware, in a non-public forum, security measures and security protocols have been found by courts that I've read to be legitimate government interests, and not allowing filming to protect those security protocols and those security details is a reasonable exercise of that power that the government has to enact that reasonable rule. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Have a great morning.